So our intro to factoring here is basically running with a pattern. And we're going to start on the front of this sheet with what we call diamond problems. And you probably have seen these before too. And basically the pattern is we're looking for a pair of numbers that we can multiply to get the number on the top. And that we can add to get the number on the bottom. And these two numbers on the sides are the mystery numbers that we're trying to use to complete that task. But the two numbers on the sides have to work for both. 2 plus 10 is 12. Check. 2 times 10 is 20. Check. Let me just get going that way. Thank you. So, when we're going through these, that's what we're trying to do. So you notice on number 2, we can just kind of look through this one because it's done already. Negative 3 times 2 would get me a negative 6. Still multiplies. Negative 3 plus 2. I owe my friend $3. I pay him 2 back. Now I owe him 1. But that's kind of what we're going to be working towards. So sometimes you may only have one number we're looking for. So again, two numbers that multiply to 20 and add to 9. If I'm given one of them already, I can choose to tackle this whichever way I want. 4 plus what gets me to 9, or 4 times what gets me to 20. Hopefully that one comes up pretty quick for you. But what if I don't give you either? Ooh. All right, we're going to take a peek at 11 and actually 12 here. I'm going to start at 12. We'll come back to 11. So multiply to 24 and add to 14. Now, this one may not come right to the top of your head when you do these. You're like, okay, so 24, if I didn't have like a multiplication chart or something, what can I do? What if I'm not sure? Because the only one that I seem to remember off the top of my head is 3 and 8. Well, 3 plus 8 doesn't get me 14, so what do I do? My suggestion is grab a calculator. And you start with the smaller numbers. Don't start with 1, because, 1 isn't going to help us in this case. 1 and 24 isn't going to get me to 14. And divide them in. So if you grab a calculator, you go, okay, 24 divided by 2. And it comes out nice. And you're like, hey, wait a minute. I'm looking for a pair that adds up to 12. Well, these added up to 11. That didn't work. These added up to 25. But hey, they add up to 14. Sweet. 2 and 12. Okay, so the calculator really can be an asset to you when you're doing this. Some may take a little longer than others. You may have to do that a few times, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to do that. So then I get, negatives. Okay, let's see here. Now, I can learn a couple of things from the signs, and here's what I can learn. If I get a multiply number that's negative, it means that one of my numbers is going to be negative and one of my numbers is going to be positive. So I know that right away. I also know that since the add number is negative, that the minus number will be the bigger one of the two. So I've learned a little bit before I even start doing anything with the numbers. But now we get down to it. So 28. You're like, all right, 28. I know 4 and 7. Unfortunately, that's not going to get me here. So you're like, all right, 1 and 28, that's not getting me to 12. So let's start the dividing process. I plug in 2. 28 divided by 2 is 14. You're like, dang, 2 plus 14 doesn't get me there, but here's where I got to stop and think for a minute. When they're opposite signs, okay? When they're the same sign, we're adding. When they're opposite signs, we're really kind of subtracting in a way. So 14 and 2 are 12 apart. And if the bigger one has to be negative, let's try this. 14 and 2. For some of you, it might be a better idea using a pencil, because if we screw something up, we can erase it. Is negative 14 times positive 2 negative 28? Yeah. If I owe my friend $14 and I pay 2 back, now do I only owe 12? Yeah, okay. So that's what I want you to kind of focus in on when you're doing these. And at the start, there's going to be some bumps. If they're the same sign, we add to get the number on the bottom. If they're different signs, we're really kind of subtracting because 14 minus 2 is 12. So it's kind of the thought process we're going to be doing. So we play with those a bit. And then over on the back, okay, notice, if you didn't notice on the front, we're going to 24. And then we're going to cut off for now because we don't need to throw in extra stuff right off the bat. You're like, whoa, these don't look like the diamonds. They're actually the same thing, though. Except now when they look like this is going to be my multiply number. This is going to be my add number. So if you like thinking of them like you were with the diamonds before, basically, this is what I'm trying to solve. So I need two numbers that multiply to 16, but add up to 8. Ideas? Multiply to 16 and add to 8. 4 and 4. And again, if you wouldn't have thought of that right away, and there's one more step to this one, what we can do is we could kind of do like we did before and go, okay, I know 8 and 2. Unfortunately, that doesn't add up to 8. And then hopefully the next one you'd think of is 4 and 4, which does add up to 8. But here's how it works when we've got what's called a trinomial like this with variables. We're going to make two sets of parentheses. Whichever variable is at the start is what I'm going to start each of those with. Notice I'm not putting n squared, I'm just putting n. And since these are both pluses, I put pluses in my 4s. And I get my answer. So I want you, especially early here, to feel comfortable with how these are working. If we look at 23, let's say, get my parentheses in here. And I know we'll start with x. Now, let's see if the signs can help me. I'm multiplying to a positive 20. Okay? The positive, again, means they're either both positive or they're both negative, because positive times positive, of course, is positive, but so is negative times negative. Well, how do I know which one it's going to be? I look at the sign in the middle. If that's a negative, these are both going to be negative. Okay? So like we've said before, if the signs are the same, we're adding. So I need two numbers that multiply to 20 but add up to 9. Ideas? Otherwise I can start dividing in like we did before. Yeah, 5 and 4. And I'm set. Okay? That's kind of our mini intro. I just want to get you thinking a little bit about numbers and how they work together with these. Or that if I multiply to get a positive, the signs are going to be the same. If that's stuff we can start to work right away, you're going to be in really good shape as we start doing this a little bit. Because sometimes in Algebra 2, I like to call factoring the Algebra 2 F word. Because either you're going along good with it, or it makes you want to say bad words. So hopefully we're going to avoid the bad part of this and kind of work through that. So when you get done with your exponent quiz, this is kind of where the focus is, and I've got an answer sheet up front for you to kind of look at.